the power or the equipment to know where these terrorists are, to tackle insecurity?
The government knows every terrorist by name and by location. I don't go alone. I don't go to the terrorists alone. I call the police, I call the security, everybody. I will go to the MES, another place. In fact, when we went to one terrorist, I went with, even with women with me. It was a bush. The thing is, you didn't see it because the camera was not concentrated on it. I don't go alone.
All right. Shegumi right there, and these remarks have generated widespread reactions among Nigerians because if indeed the government knows these criminals, according to Shegumi, knows where they are located and know who they are, and even accompanies negotiators to meet them, then a difficult question naturally would be why does insecurity persist at such devastating levels across the country? So, or rather, across Nigeria today, many communities continue to live under the shadow of violence. In the northeast, for instance, we have, Boko Haram and its offshoot ISWAP continue to launch daily attacks. In fact, recent reports indicate that at least 65 Nigerian soldiers were killed in jihadist raids on military bases in Borno State within just 2 weeks, while hundreds of civilians were abducted during, coordinated attacks on communities, right? And so in the northwest, we have, armed bandits, bandit groups. They've turned kidnapping into a major criminal enterprise, and over the years, thousands of people have been abducted from villages, highways, schools, and even places of worship. In one recent incident, militants attacked communities in Kwara State, killing more than 160 people and kidnapping dozens. And human rights organizations and indeed Nigerians notes that kidnappings and violent raids by bandit groups remain widespread, particularly in the northern part of Nigeria. And it's a question of, despite the huge amount of monies budgeted for defense, why has insecurity persisted? With what Shei Gumi recently said, it further brings that conversation to the front burner, and you now begin to look at the way the government has addressed insecurity, especially in the past couple of days. Also, would like to take a look at this statement critically by Shei Gumi. Look at how the government has been able to, tackle insecurity. Are they really fighting insecurity, or are they playing to the gallery? I mean, that's the million dollar question. We would like to answer that as much as we can on today's edition of Urban Prime Time. So glad to have you on the program once again. My name is Favor, and Dr. Obasi joins us on the conversation this evening. Dr. Obasi, glad to have you. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Favor. Good evening from good evening, listeners.
Oh, how are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay.
Prior to now, Nigerians have always called for the head of Shei Gumi. I guess that interview would probably, probably explains why the Nigerian government cannot come for him. Because, I mean, imagine the boldness to say that the federal government knows bandits by name and by location, and he does not go to negotiate with these bandits alone. When you listen to somebody like Shegumi and all that, and how insecurity has spiraled out of control, especially in the past couple of years and under this administration, what would be your thoughts, really?
Am I disturbed? When I listen to Shegumi, it's somebody that, if you don't really understand his background, you could call him any name. He's a very highly intelligent person. Shegumi is a medical doctor. I hope you're aware. And
I do.
he's a former military officer. I hope you're aware.
He's a former military officer. Makes sense. Why? Because at an event, there was a video that went viral of a military man coming to prostrate before you. I'm like, what's going on here?
So people who may not understand, Shegumi is highly entrenched in the security network of the foundation. For people who do not really appreciate this, just the background. So when he makes any statement, if you take it, lightly, you are making a very big mistake. Sheikh Gumi understands the dynamic of security, and for whatever he says, he understands what he's saying. For some people who might think he's one person, you just go out there on the street and arrest, you're making a terrible mistake. As per the statement he actually made, one would understand clearly that the political economy or the economy of war is at play. Largely, Nigerian insecurity is bedeviled by both internal and external forces. Some of these forces you can ride behind, some you cannot do much. Especially when it comes to external and corruption. Let me start with internal. When the government fails to do what it ought to do, when the government fails to provide the necessary job, when the government fails to address problems squarely, you are actually planning to get insecurity. A situation whereby you keep saying the number of children, migrating into adulthood is on the increase. The number of companies where they will work is folding. The economy is closing up. You keep just maintaining government from day to day. Corruption is at its peak. You are simply, you've simply succeeded in planning for a failed state and insecurity. That is the core truth. Now remember, Abacha was one person that said if insecurity lasts beyond 24 hours, it simply implies there is government hands about it. Abacha was trying from a totalitarian system of governance or a dictatorship where he has absolute control. But beyond that, what that implies is that the government apparatus is such a huge network of information that they can actually track anybody they want to track and get the person out. So the question we begin to ask is, what are the causes of insecurity? Which ones are caused by the federation? Which ones are caused by what Abacha said the government has a hand in it? And which ones are things that are not really caused by what government has a hand in it? In the first instance, when you fail to do work, like I said earlier, you are one of the people that caused the problem. And then when you fail to tackle issues when it's ought to be tackled, you're one of the causes. And then when you pervade corruption within the system, you're one of the causes. When you focus your solution to insecurity to only kinetic mechanism, whereby you buy guns, you buy bullets, you buy bullets, which actually ends up enriching those insecurity cycle, you are aiding that. When you capitulate to international conspiracies, you actually exacerbate insecurity. So there are so many angles to what actually causes insecurity. What Shegumi is simply saying is, look, these people that are causing this, government knows about them. Let me give a typical example. The Northwest, majority of the people that cause insecurity, who we call bandits, are simply scaring people away. Okay, let me also measure the government. Are simply scaring people away to places where illegal mining go on. So people might think that the primary aim is, to take people's money, but they may not understand that primary aim is to ward off people from coming within a mining environment. And when you do that, the criminals, which incidentally are other illegal miners, who are permitted by those in government, by virtue of corruption, or those in government are actually perpetuating it. People will tell you, so either of the two is you see that these corrupt practices has actually exacerbated insecurity. I'll borrow a leaf from Jonathan's era. He said that his cabinet was perverted by, Boko Haram members. One might think are Boko Haram members inside his cabinet, but no. These are people who are Boko Haram apologists, right? And unlike what Gumi says, this is available across the federation. If you go to the Northeast, there was, I think, in 2010, when the former president was allegedly credited to a statement that a killing of Boko Haram members is an attack on the North. Right? You discover that if a highly placed individual like that is softly giving the support to criminality, whether by direct confrontation, indirect, or but if any mechanism.
Even recently, we had the NSA say something along those lines.
So you are emboldening those people, which means you are in discussion with them. If you go across the federation, the Igbo of the southwest, you see when Igbo was causing insecurity, some of the members of the southwest supported it, which so many people actually said, why won't Igbo people support Nnamdi Kanu, right? And then we even see here in the southeast, we see a lot of people who will tell you, forget Nnamdi Kanu, what is he doing? Others in the north. So you see that some of the local politicians and local leaders actually give tacit support to that, either by whatever they are gaining or whatever they anticipate to gain.
Do you think is Sheikh a Boko Haram apologist?
Sheikh is on his own. Let me put it this way. If you listen to him clearly, if you follow that statement, if you follow that speech, he said that if the IPOB, Boko Haram, or any other group agrees to lay their hands, to lay down their arms, that he will support them. So you could see the commercial venture of Sheikh in this business. So if you agree for any reason, you want to dine and wine with government, Sheikh can now come in and become a negotiator because he can be trusted. That's what he's trying to say, right? And there's no way you go to the bandits and they tell him whatever he is, they want, and he comes back to the government. Government will tell the government they will not pay him. So Sheikh was is actually trying to put himself as a bridge between him and the security people, because he had seen that kinetic movement has failed.
So do you think the government, which raises the question I had initially asked, do you think the government is really fighting insecurity, or do you think they're playing to the gallery?
They're playing to the gallery. I've said it time without numbers. Because if you remember Niger Delta, when Niger Delta crisis, was at its peak, it took non-kinetic approach for resolving it. Then it was led by Goodluck Jonathan, who even went to the clique as a vice president and began to discuss with them. They laid down their hands. Government provided reforming rehabilitation mechanisms. Some of them were sent abroad, sent to school, and then they went down to the need, because when you say Boko Haram, for example, or IPOB is interested in secession, for some of us, those are not the needs. Those are not the core issue. Those are just positions, right? And when people take positions, for many, 95% of us on the street will have hammering on that position. If you remember, during Niger Delta crisis, the position was very simple. Let every oil block, the white men should go, that they will mine their oil. Now, when the interest came, they said they turned and said their interest was very simple, that Ogoni land had been riddled with, oil spillage and so on. They degraded our lands and, that kind of a thing. But when they came down to the negotiation, it became an issue. Look, this oil you're taking away from our place, we have to be part and parcel of the oil business. You cannot just be taking oil, developing Abuja and every part of Nigeria, and we're not developed. The federal government had to begin active issue on 13% derivation. So the government said, we are going to train you so that you become part of these communities, will own some percentage of this oil. And then, you remember that the largest private security network we have in Nigeria is given to Tantita, and that has to guard the coastal line. And you want coastal oil pipelines. And ever since then, oil output has increased. And a lot of Niger Delta people, the youth, were employed. And that was the need. That is the core problem. So when Sheikh is simply saying, is, come, I know these people are focusing interest in simply a non-kinetic process. Get put on the ground, kill. Yes, it's giving money, but it's not giving tangible results. And it seems there is no other person who understands non-kinetic approach in this era. Let me make myself available, to go into non-kinetic approach and resolve the matter. I can tell you, some people in some appellants have said that Sheikh could be a CIA agent. There's no evidence to that, but the truth of the matter remains that he is acting within the law. Like he says, if you listen to him, he says that the emirs, that he talks to the security operatives, before, and some of them escorting, to those areas. That's, that may not be a support that government actually endorsed in doing. That's less, because he didn't say that federal government endorsed it before people would think. But if there is a problem like insecurity, and you say there's something you can do, the government is bound to, if you can provide an alternative pathway, government will say, okay, we can give you money, but go and talk to them. For example, if there are people in the forest, even in Igbo land, and you agree that, wait, we can go into that discussion with these guys and bring the government will say, okay, fine, if you know what to do, do. So whether them come out of it or stop that. And I can tell you, no country in the world will say they don't negotiate with criminals. We can put down money and we begin to say, as rich as Mossad in espionage, as big as Mossad, they negotiate. In America, they negotiate, right? But the issue here is the negotiations always go behind the doors. So Shegumi is one person that has brought himself. We don't know others, right? We don't know others. But Shegumi had been the vocal one who had been talking. But I can tell you, there may be more doing this anti-Shegumi.
If we continue with this negotiating process, are we not legitimizing this whole insecurity?
The issue is that, like I said earlier, the government has failed to do what they ought to do. You have no reason why your population growth rate is at 3 point something for, especially in the north. You see that over there in the north, population growth rate is as much as 4%, and you're having employment, unemployment rate at double digits. It doesn't make sense. And your annual GDP growth rate is at less than the population growth rate. There's no way. It simply means you're not matching. People are not being matched to work. There are fewer works available for the population. So when you are doing that, you see that if the poverty will increase, even those of them that are working are not working enough. So what we simply do is that you increase insecurity. So any country that wants that, first of all, will make sure that people are educated, and once they're educated, you find work for them. And then you know that the few of them that are remaining, that may be recruited, the security operatives will handle them. That's one. Number two, on your international front, you have to understand the dynamics within the ecosystem. For example, I always maintain that for those who appreciate what security is, when Muammar Gaddafi was to be killed, it was obviously clear that America, Obama-led Clinton, and NATO were out to kill Libya. And many of us understand clearly, those in government understand clearly that the Sahel region was being fully held, well by Muammar Gaddafi. They call him Lion of the Desert. Now, destroying the man was to throw the whole of that Mali, those Sahel region that are poor, into an open space where insecurity will thrive. And ever since the man demised, some 12 years back, we've not seen peace in those areas. We immediately saw Mali Tuaregs up their game. We saw Al-Shabaab, we saw Boko Haram having sophisticated weapons. And we're talking about a space that is 5 to 10 times larger than the size of Nigeria. With a very scanty population of people that are probably, ravaged people. So it became difficult. So what did the federal government and the government of West Africa, do to avert that killing? They will tell you they did something, but to me and for some of us, the urgency and the energy they put in, averting the killing of or dissolution of that government is not enough. Just like many of us, we are not happy with what's happening in Iran, because if you take a look at Iran, ISIS, increased because you have Iraq decimated. Now I'm very close to Iraq. The next neighbor is Iran. And you are trying to decimate Iran again. What are you trying to achieve? I don't know if you get what I'm going to point out. When you decimate Iran, look at Iraq, look at Syria, look at Lebanon. These are places that we are now having almost ungovernable people. And you are creating an ecosystem whereby people who do a lot of black market and get money. Now, the bottom line is that this market will not move to the Middle East. It will not move to Europe. It will not move to India, because the criminals may not be able to have enough leverage doing that. And for them in America, of course it's far. So the easiest place to push this criminality and sponsor crime will be in Africa. So many people will be telling you, destroy Iran, may not understand the consequences of this. And these are external factors. Then another factor is the issue of climate change. It's noted that over the last 10 years, close to 40 million persons have migrated from Africa, North African, down to the south. Now, you might not understand the depth of climate change, but let's take a look at River Chad Basin. Chad Basin used to be 40,000 square kilometers. Today, Chad Basin is less than 10,000 square kilometers. The water body has shrunk and lost about 30,000 square kilometers. That place was a habitat for a whole lot of cattle, a whole lot of herdsmen working out, because that place always harbor vegetation that is green. Now, when you have places where you have arid region, people are bound to migrate, and when they migrate, many of them come in as criminals. They don't know the laws of the land, and how to assert or live in the place. They have altercations and squabbles with the crime. So you discover that Nigeria is a beneficiary in the negative direction of climate change. You look at our border over there in the north, for example. Our border is so porous with over 1,000 unmanned, counted but unmanned checkpoints. What do you expect? People walk in and walk out without being profiled, without being protected. So you say that a whole lot the government hadn't done, hadn't put into consideration, or even if they are doing, had not done it well, actually led us to where we are. And international politics discover that we are not getting our act together. I mean, each time I hear foreign partners coming to solve our problem, it becomes difficult. Now, come to look at it. Most of these bandits will make calls with phones. These phones can be technologically tracked. In fact, there's no call you make now that you cannot be tracked at least 3 meters, 3 kilometers radius of where you are making the call from. But I mean, with all this sophisticated technology, it's difficult for them. You see people staying in a forest, doing all what they're doing, and we have our planes, we have our recognized missions, and it's not functioning. I mean, let's be honest.
Dr. Dasi, that brings us to the foreign intervention that you mentioned, because if you listen to the full clip of the interview, Sheikh Gumi also alleged foreign complicity in Nigeria's insecurity. And if you now check what has happened over time, I know that I think the US deployed at least 100 to 200 military personnel down to Nigeria to help with the Nigerian military with training, with intelligence, and even technical support. But even with that, we are still seeing that this insecurity has persisted over time. We saw 100 women and children abducted in Borno State. We also saw what happened in Kebbi State. Now, when you look at this and international interference, do you think that the collaboration, can we really say that the collaboration has yielded significant results? Or do you agree with Sheikh Gumi that there is foreign complicity, especially from the United States?
The first question is, how do you solve a problem you are the architect primary cause of the problem? I have said how ISIS came on board. In fact, we can go on to say how many of us actually accuse the Shiites have been, the rough types in Nigeria. We begin to ask, how did the Shiites come to power? The Ayatollah Khomeini's, how did they come to power? In 1950s, there was a coup staged by America to remove the sitting president, the democratic leadership of Iran, and then brought Shah Pahlavi, who was a monarch in Iran, and he ruled for over 25 years. And the countrymen became annoyed and threw him away. That was how Ayatollah Khomeini became. Indirectly, you installed, the leadership of Islamic fundamentalists, which are today sponsoring Hamas, sponsoring Hezbollah in Yemen, the Hutus, and so on. Right? You now move again to the neighboring country. You told us there was what is it called? There was weapon of mass destruction in Iraq, and you staged the war, removed Saddam Hussein, killed him, and dragged him on the street. Ever since then to today, but there was no Saddam Hussein, there was no weapon of mass destruction. The country is in ruin, and from there ISIS emanated. ISIS is sponsoring Boko Haram. Help you oust during Cold War. Eventually, you and Taliban had problems. You took them away in 2000. Only for you to return back to Taliban, and then Taliban is there. So who is actually instigating? So now, where do these people find favorable ground to breathe? Was Sub-Saharan Africa. Now you come to Sub-Saharan Africa. I mentioned how Libya crisis came on board. So you see, when we heard America was coming, I was on this platform. I said, I mean, we are joking. America is coming for something, and what is that? Economic progress. I mean, there's no way America will be one country or any of these West will be one country that would want you to be at peace. They wouldn't want you to go into war because that will worsen their own situation. They don't want refugees in their country. But they will not want you to be at peace because all of them have interest in the booty. As long as Nigeria is not, Nigerians are not asking what is happening in the north. Nigerians are not asking about the mineral resources, rare earth metals and gold and titanium, whatever they are mining, everybody is scrambling. Look at Congo, for example. We have seen this. So anybody telling you that you are going to have security because America is here, my dear, I beg, it is not possible. If you want to solve your problem, look at what the Asians are doing. Countrymen sit down and look at their country and say, look, we need to work on this, our country. It's only when you work on your country that your country will begin to have leverage to discuss with America. This is where we want you to come in. Now the 200 men you mentioned, these 200 men are not going to put boot on the ground. They are just here to give technical support. And one of the things that removed Jonathan was that Jonathan refused African Command Center for America to be established in Nigeria. That's one of his problems. And it was established in Ghana. And now, when this pressure came, they still came back, let them have a center in Nigeria. And they chose either Lagos or Abuja. The federal government said, okay, go to Sambisa Forest. Because they want crisis, otherwise you'll get destabilization. More recently, there is this economic scrambling in the world. In fact, for so many people who do not understand what is going on in Iran, if anybody tells you these guys have got weapon of mass destruction, all those things that cock and bull story. From 90s, 95, 96, Netanyahu had been shouting that, look, Iran is just 1 week away from getting nuclear weapon. The truth of the matter is that the world is recalibrating. And when the world is recalibrating, war is the instrument the West understand clearly to bully people to their own side. That was done on Venezuela. That was to be done to Canada and the Greenland. Those two refused. That was Nigeria was bullied. Nigeria caved in. South Africa was bullied. South Africa stood their ground. And if you look at this, it's about getting, making sure that your allies are there or getting new grounds. What is clearly happening, like what we have seen today, the war in Iran is benefiting two countries. First is Russia, economically, and second is China. That what is his name said that the Iranian government that the only ship they will allow to cross through the Strait of Hormuz is only the Chinese ship. So you see, when the superpowers are struggling, for some of us who may not understand the undertone, but that for me, that's on one perspective, because countries like India, that is the largest nation in the world today, but has got their government in place. You don't destabilize them, right? The American envoy to India, I think some weeks ago, said that they are going to play with India, in trade deals as equal. They're not going to trade with India like the way they treated, China. They are not going to trade with India like we are going to hand you over, but it's going to be equal because the India diplomatic shuttle had gotten some leverage. But on our own, we are still begging cap in hand. And I hear some people, hey, America, please come and destroy Aso Rock. Let us have peace. I say, can you mention?
The thing is, having admitted that, there's foreign interference when it comes to insecurity, which of course Shegumi mentioned in the course of that interview. What bothers the common man on the street is, how am I going to be secure? What we have seen, happening in the north in recent time is a bit disturbing. And you must have seen the reports about terrorists, suspected to be members of ISWAP attacking military bases in Borno State. Yes. Killing commanding officers and some soldiers. We even understand that they made away with some of their armored cars, and those armored cars were being flaunted on social media and all of that. Now, if you go back to 2019, even if you go back to way before 2019, but if you go back to 2019, you will understand that humongous parts of our monies have been budgeted for defense. In 2019, for instance, we had a little below 1 trillion, which is about 957 billion naira budgeted for defense. In 2020, it was 899 billion. In 2021, it was 966 billion. And in 2022, it rose to 1.19 trillion naira. 2023, when this administration came on board, it was 1.38 trillion. Now, interestingly, in 2024, we saw a huge increase due to expanded what the federal government described as an expanded security operations. We saw 3.85 trillion budgeted for defense, and 2025, the 2025 budget gulped 4.9 trillion naira for defense, and in 2026 the federal government is proposing 5.41 trillion naira, which is the largest defense allocation so far. So under this administration alone, from 2023 till date, we have seen humongous amounts of money budgeted for defense. Now, it's a question of whether whether there is a possibility that the federal government really can fight insecurity to a standstill, right? Is it possible that they can bring normalcy to the northern part of the country? Yeah, in the course of your submissions, you also talked about mining and the fact that some of the people in government are very much aware of what is going on. Having all of this at the back of our minds, is it possible to say that at any point, given the monies that have been budgeted, that the federal government can actually be sincere in fighting insecurity to a standstill?
If we run the economic analysis of those money budgeted, it's what I'd say they are wastes. So if you go home and your baby is crying of no food, and all you could do was to buy cane and cane that child to quietness, have you resolved the crisis? If not, the child will wake up in the night. So don't bug you local sneak after the other sitting on your boss. And I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about. The core problem is internal, number one. Corruption is number one problem. Many of these monies you have mentioned, you can be so surprised that first, the monies are not budgeted. The budgeted monies are not released.
Right.
Even when they are released, more than 30 to 50% of those monies will be freighted away. We know the case of Daddy, former chief of I think chief of air staff, Evans Mashabadi, who went
For
to.
instance, sorry, in 2025, about 1.48 trillion was budgeted, but the actual visible spending at the time was 684 billion naira.
So you can be rest assured that these monies might be budgeted, but it's like using cane to flog it who is hungry. So the best process you need to do is, as a parent, why don't you save the money for the you use in buying the cane, probably use that for feed and buy food and feed your child. So for me, the first problem to solving our insecurity is government must be sincere and begin to doubt corruption. When the populace sees that government is working, when the populace see that the government is feeling their pain, I wonder how a governor will be working with vehicles worth billions as as convoy. Whereas the ordinary person on the street might find it difficult to eat the next meal. It doesn't make sense. Now, what are you expecting the government, the criminal-minded, or somebody that is vulnerable to criminality to carry arms? I always ask this question. Assuming if you're able to see 1 million Boko Haram members today, and they bring their guns to the field and tell you, sir, you see, we just give you 24 hours. Do whatever you want to do with us to stop this crime, or otherwise, we are going back to the forest with our guns. What would you do? Arrest them and put them in detention with facility? And somebody will tell me, yes, we'll build more facility. With which money? I don't know if you understand what I mean. I kill them with which bullet? For each bullet you expend on each person is more than a day meal. For the number of bullets, for each bullet you hear the military man, I think now, one they shoot up to 50 rounds there. Count it, is more than 50,000 naira. And then imagine the number of bullets we push in every day. Who makes the money? The warmongers in the West are making the money. So you are actually increasing their money. They need you to continue this way. So they will keep on telling you, you don't have surveillance, you don't have this, buy ammunition, do this. And those military contractors are making money. For example, in Iran today, America spends close to $1 billion every day on that war. Every blessed day on that war. Iran is decimated. So on one side, the warmongers in America are busy cashing out. The warmongers on the other side are busy, and who is suffering? The young girls in girls' school, over 140 of them, We are
They
murdered.
were killed.
I mean, this is when leaders fail to do what is needful, when leaders are interested, in bringing anti-infested firewood, would they avoid lizard from coming?
Do you think Nigeria is too complex for one person to?
In Nigeria is not even complex. What complex to what? Complex like in India. I mentioned India is 1.5 billion. China is 1.4 billion. So what complex to what? Complex that every Nigerian will not understand that look, government is trying. Complex that you look at the purchasing power of an average Nigerian and you can buy something. Why won't you understand with government? The issue is that turn your right hand, you see government pilfering money, you see politicians stealing money, turn your left, go to offices, things are not working. An average Nigerian understands this. So how can you tell him he's going to go to our hospitals, go to police stations, the second policemen, go to the office and see how they're looking like that. I mean, this is Nigerian side. People bring in the so-called palliative when they were bringing palliative. Did you not see how they were stored and people had to cut away with those? We are there shared. So the average Nigerians understand clearly that corruption, we are living and sleeping with corruption. And until you sort out that problem of corruption and then focus the country, remember, 10, 15 years ago, India was as chaotic as Nigeria. India, 40 years back, Nigeria was far richer than China. But if you go to the average Chinese person today, drop your phone anywhere, nobody's interested in stealing. Because the next person on the street is looking for what to do. I always maintain, nobody is interested in being Dangote. We will not have more than 10 Dangotes in this world. But people are interested in what can I do from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and I feed myself, get tired, go back and sleep, have some rest. And the next day you keep moving. This is how every world that has developed try to figure out what to do. You look at what is inside of you. But here, what are we doing? We sit down, see your leaders who in London. I mean, is that how the country develop?
All right. You mentioned in your submissions that there is no country in the world that negotiations are not allowed. I know that sometime last month, the Nigerian government was alleged to have paid about 2 billion naira as ransom, to rescue some of the school children. That was what they paid to the kidnappers. But if we are looking at this paying of ransom, how do we now differentiate? At what point can we say that this is not complicity on the part of the government if we continue like this? Because at the time, when the Nigerian people, when they hear that the government is aware of where these kidnappers are, their names, it's kind of discouraging. At what point can we say that this is complicity on the part of the government?
If you had ever watched Mossad, when they negotiate with you, which is always behind the closed doors, but rest assured, after the negotiation and the ransom, they will follow you and kill you. They will buy you. That's Mossad for you. So the reward, the next person will know that after negotiating with you, for any reason, if they cannot, take their people the way they want to take it, that you might not live to, enjoy that fund. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to point out. Part of the problem that the IRGC in Iran is having is when they, I think in early 80s or thereabouts, when the members of IRGC, kidnapped American citizens and kept them for 44 days. Actually, America negotiated with them, but they've not forgiven them. Now, when you do that, it's expected that you are trying to get back your citizens, because the life of every citizen matters a lot. If the citizens of the country understand that you can do anything, to get back the citizen, they will feel glad. But more importantly, is that if like America, if they pay you $1 as to ransom, they will spend $5 to make sure they kill the kidnapper or anybody that actually committed the crime. So the next person will now know that this is not business as usual. But let me explain this so that you can understand that anybody that says it's a complicity, the person may not be wrong. Sometime under Jonathan, we heard that PNID, one company, sued Nigeria and won a case in London. As if that was not enough, by the time Buhari came on board, the matter had gone to, I think, $15 billion. Nigeria hadn't the money to pay. And that was when the Nigerian government began to, struggle over it. They were to seize assets of Nigeria over there in London. And inquiry started in Nigeria. And they discovered that there was no company registered as PIID in Nigeria at the first instance. So it was a conduit spy by those in government, to purposely, negotiate into a contract, fail the contract, go to international court, do some bidding, and accept that they had.
That's an SPV,
it's SPV, special purpose vehicle. Right. So it was clear that in the first instance, there was no business in the first instance. That was how Nigeria, the court of Nigeria, declared that that company was a fraud in Nigeria before they went back. That was how Nigeria got off that hook. Yeah, that is one. Because the president, the Nigerian government could not even pay if he had told them to pay us at that time. Remember, they had gotten into negotiation, but negotiation failed. So, assuming if those guys were not too greedy, maybe negotiation would have ended at $4 billion. Nigeria will pay. So, who are those behind the PIND? As I speak to you today, Nigerians that actually participated in that, those that brought all those business, nobody was punished. So, don't you see there's no deterrent to criminality?
All right.
So you see, I'm using this to liken to what we talk about, people that are, doing this negotiation. Sometimes it could be possible that those of them understand what's going on. So they do take this criminality and take off their own part of the money. After all, we heard in Ebonyi State, is it allegedly an APC? Let me put allegedly because there's still ongoing discussion. I think it was APC secretary. They attempt to kidnap the former Igwe of Ebonyi, one Igwe, I've forgotten the man's name, the father to the former deputy governor of Ebonyi State. The man died in the bush. And the police has actually gotten, a politician involved. So assuming that had gone on, you see that the man has, in the state government, which he is part and parcel of, he has his ears, his eyes there. So he could smoothen the ground. So and he was part of those that will collect ransom.
All right. Well, we'll get to the top lines. I remember in 2024 when Mohammed Idris, the Commissioner for Information and National Orientation, came out to say that the federal government has invited Sheikh Gumi over his comments on the activities of bandits in the country in 2024, right?
Exactly.
That they've invited him over his comments on the activities of bandits, and that Gumi is not above the law, and that the government has deemed it necessary to invite him for questioning. If not that we're a country that never really keep up with things. I mean, these are some of the things that you follow up with and ensure that the government makes do what they've come out to publicly say. But this is 2026, and this is the same Sheikh Gumi coming out to say that the federal government knows the bandits by name or by location. Anyway, we'll get to the talk line, so I'd like to get your thoughts. It's almost as if the situation in the northern part of the country is spiraling out of control, and it's a question of how do we begin to really address this, despite the humongous amounts of money that we see on a yearly basis go into defense. 0916 0004945 and 0916 0005945. Those are the numbers to call. Let's quickly get your thoughts. Hello. Good evening.
Choma, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Yes, good evening.
Augustine, go ahead.
Yes. Sheikh Gumi, after all, untouchable than Nigeria. One more, onye Iguania, or in Southeast, the Kujokwa, Sheikh Gumi, all Nigeria. Now, Arenola, Nga, Nwa. Malo untouchable because Hamarakashi, Kahashi, well, presidency, but I go Nigeria. Chilo Nigeria, Labor. Yeah, Sheikh Gumi, as you go, any question here, Okundo Yala, Mandu policeman, Mamania, Hashara, or Malabara Kipsia, yeah, maybe a little shit to my cook. Other Mumalobi, Nigeria, wake up. Even president, governor Nadia, or to hand above the law, than Nigeria. They won't.
All right. Well, thank you for your thoughts. I keep the calls coming. He's saying it's the federal government. Are you hard of hearing? I'm costing. He's saying it's the federal government arrested. He has said they are the ones who, give him security to go and negotiate. Hello?
Yeah, Favor, good evening, and the guest, Dr.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, this is Reverend AC from Enugu here. Am I coming out clear?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to say, you see, corruption. Corruption is actually the problem that Nigeria is having, especially in the place of leadership, and it's a serious matter. I have often said it in radio stations that not until God help us in the place of corruption, I don't think anything will be successful in this country. And okay, look at the leadership. We are talking about security. Security is one of the primary things in every nation. And here the leadership are playing to the gallery. They are not being sincere over the matter. I've also said it. If we must, get these things right, if we must get things right, the truth must be on the table. The leaders must stand by the truth. Shehu Gumi, Nigerians have been talking about him. Don't trace back to the time of Buhari. It has always been Shehu Gumi, Shehu Gumi, Shehu Gumi. And he has never hidden his mind over this matter. He has always been saying it, parading himself as a small god and all that. And nothing has been done. Why? Because of this corruption matter. And so if anybody is expecting that this issue of insecurity in Nigeria will see anything light, that person may be dreaming until the leaders are really sure. There is something, agenda that is secret about Nigeria, especially that APC brought, that we have not known. We pray that the Lord will expose all these things.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts. Let's take one more call. Hello? Hello?
I greet you. I greet two of you in the studio.
Good evening to you. Go on, please, quickly.
My name is Wood. Now, it is widely known, both home and abroad, that this insecurity in this country, Nigeria, is being sponsored by the Nigerian politicians. So, with the involvement of this one now in their point, that hoodlums kidnapped the father of the former deputy governor of Ebonyi State. So some people don't know that the terrorism is being sponsored by groups. We know. So Abacha said the question is
All right, your voice is not coming out very clear, but Dr. Basi, we'll get back to you now. At some point I asked you if you think Nigeria is complex to manage, and you said no, you don't think so. We are nothing close to China and all that, So, but sometimes it's almost as if the leaders are scared to. I don't know if I should.
They are not scared.
Fear.
Yes, many of them are not afraid. See, it is a whole lot of topic if you understand why Nigeria is not functioning. Some of us have actually advocated that a lot of things went wrong. For example, the man of God that spoke said, God help us. Which God? Which God will help you? Which country has God? Which God country developed by kneeling down and asking God for help? They take their development by force. People were punished. Laws were made. People were punished according to the laws. Nobody says God. Which God? Part of the problem we have is that religion is a meant of new colonization. Somebody is actually telling you to pray to God, attenuating you, telling you to be quiet, white criminals are stealing. That was the instrument that was used by a white man. They will say, pray for your leaders. Which leaders? Those that are corrupt. How can you pray for somebody that was corrupt? Christ entered the temple and saw corrupt people. He didn't pray. He used the wipe and wiped them out of the synagogue. Why should we pray? You understand what I'm trying to point out? This is number one. A lot of institutions we have in Africa are not functioning. Somebody brought you out of university, and only what you are taught is when you start working. Working where? You're a developing nation. Nobody taught you how to work. You have to work. All of us carry certificates that are worthless. That is the second problem. So you see that you have a fractured education. The education you are gotten is only to extract, take. So even when you see the person in office or government, the only thing he wants to do is how much am I taking away from the system?
Right.
He takes in the money as a governor, as a minister. He steals the money rather than even investing it here. He stashes it in abroad where he thinks he's a saver. The day he dies, the money goes away. Again, the education you have is leaving you not to think critically but to work for somebody. Take a look. For many of us that are even graduates, PhD, ask anybody out of school, what would you do? You say, when I start working for who? You're a developing nation.
And working where?
And working where? Nothing is there to work. Then you come to look at even the so-called democracy we are practicing. I always maintain, which I'm not joking, but how many countries have practiced this type of democracy we are practicing that you can talk about development in their nation? I mean, it does not work. The society does not sit down and develop and bring one leader. No. I always maintain the most important job in any country is the leadership. Because your president is your first engineer, your president is your doctor, your president is everything. So if you look at it, it's an all-rounder person, because whatever you think you as okay, like I'm a medical doctor, whatever I think I would want to do in a nation, as well if you give me the position, I will still take it to the president, who should have enabling mind to decipher, to say this is good or this is bad. Now, in a situation whereby you are asking everybody, those that don't have critical mind to analyze, to bring up leadership, and there's no recruitment process you have in your leadership, you're only going to end up entertainers and people that lie. And that's what we've been having, not only in Nigeria, but across Africa. Because when you say Nigeria is too big, I'll still ask you what is happening in Ghana, Benin Republic, Cameroon. How big are they? The same problem is across Africa. But if you go back, you see that the institutions from day one are meant to serve a purpose, neo-colonization. And some of us who have gone to school haven't understood that snag to begin to recount what you have. If you go to church every Sunday, one day the priest or the pastor will say, let us pray for our leaders. Pray for which leaders? Rather than take whip and whip them away.
The ones that are enjoying more than you.
I mean, what are you praying for them? And you see a poor man kneeling down and praying for God to help him. Whereas your God is that governor, that local government chairman, that president, is your God you are seeing. And you are praying for which leader. And sometimes I keep telling people, until we get up to take this bull by our own, stop thinking there's any place life is. The life is here. And if you don't want to make it for your own self and your own grandchildren, we'll still continue doing it. We go try and take it when you continue there.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bassey. Always a pleasure having this types of conversation with you. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you very
on the
much.
show. And to you two who participated, we appreciate your time and your contributions on the show as well. We're back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. On Urban Radio 94.5. And my name is Well.
And I am
Who'll be next?